The washing machine died on a Wednesday night, mid-cycle, groaning like a wounded beast before giving up completely. I stared at the water pooling at my feet, feeling oddly mirrored in its mess, something breaking down quietly while no one noticed. My boyfriend, Eric, didn't. He was on another business trip, his fourth this month, leaving behind his empty mug and his colder goodbyes. I texted him about the leak, but his reply came hours later. Call someone. That was it. No. How are you? No check-in. Just an order. So, I did. The next morning, I met Christian. He arrived 20 minutes early, a faint scent of pine oil and motor grease clinging to him, his overalls half zipped down because it was already warm. He smiled like someone who hadn't yet forgotten how. You called about the washer? He asked, voice steady but warm, like he was talking to a friend instead of a stranger drowning in silence. As he worked, he asked questions about the noise the machine made, about how old it was, and unexpectedly, about the charcoal sketches hanging on my wall. Most people ignored those. You drew these? He asked, tilting his head with genuine curiosity. I nodded, startled. They're beautiful, he said simply, returning to his work, but leaving a pulse in my chest that hadn't beaten like that in months. While he fiddled with the machine's guts, I found myself studying him, the clean lines of his jaw, the faint smudge of oil on his thumb. I shouldn't have. I had a boyfriend, but loneliness made room for thoughts you didn't invite. Christian caught my gaze once, smiled softly, and said, Almost fixed. When he finished, the washer hummed back to life under his hand. The noise was comforting, a steady rhythm in a house that had felt dead. Looks good as new, he said, standing up. I thanked him, trying to sound casual. Call me if it acts up again, he added, scribbling his number on the back of a receipt. I pocketed it before I could think twice. That night, I kept glancing at my phone, not for Eric's texts, but for a message that never came. Christian's number burned in my pocket like a secret I didn't yet want to name. The washing machine worked perfectly for a week. Of course it did. Every cycle finished smooth and obedient. No strange sounds, no leaks, no excuses. Which meant I had no reason to scroll through my recent calls and pause on Christian appliance repair. No reason to stare at his number like it was a door I wasn't allowed to open. Eric came home for 2 nights in the middle of that week. He kissed my cheek distractedly, spent one evening on Zoom, the other answering emails in bed with the brightness turned up too high. When I tried to show him a new sketch, he barely glanced up. That's nice, he said, voice flat, already somewhere else. I heard myself laugh it off, but inside something tiny and tired folded in on itself. On Friday, I stood in the laundry room with a basket of clean clothes and a heart I didn't really know what to do with. The house was silent, except for the hum of the fridge and the distant traffic. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Then I opened the washer, frowned, and whispered, You could, maybe, brake a little. It didn't, of course. The idea came like a dare whispered by someone braver than me. I called the repair company. Hi, it's about the washer from last week. It's making a weird sound again. Any chance Christian's available? The lie tasted guilty and illicit, but the receptionist didn't question it. He has an opening this afternoon, she said. My pulse kicked. That's perfect, I replied too quickly. When the doorbell rang hours later, my palms were already sweaty. Christian stood there, sun behind him, hair a little messy, smile, easy. Hey, he said, guess your washer missed me. It has issues with attachment, I joked, stepping aside. Or maybe it just wanted more attention. His grin widened. Machines usually act up when they're neglected. Same with people, I guess. In the laundry room, he crouched by the washer, listening as it ran. Honestly, sounds fine, he said after a moment, but I'll open her up, just in case. He worked slower this time, or maybe I was just paying more attention. We slipped into conversation without effort, about his job, the weirdest thing he'd ever found in a drain, the way people treated him like part of the furniture. Then he asked, So, you're an artist? I hesitated. I used to be, I said. Now I mostly think about it. He glanced over his shoulder. You stopped? I shrugged. Life got loud, then kind of empty. His eyes softened in a way that made it hard to breathe. You should start again, he said quietly. Your house looks like it's waiting for more of your work. That night, when the door closed behind him, I did something I hadn't done in months. I took out my sketchbook. The universe must have gotten tired of my pretending, because the third call wasn't a lie. It happened on a Tuesday, early evening, right after another stiff phone conversation with Eric, where we both pretended everything was fine. I tossed my phone on the counter, turned on the tap in the bathroom, and heard an unfamiliar drip somewhere inside the wall. Then a trickle, then a sudden, steady patter. By the time I reached the laundry room, water was already sneaking down from the ceiling, tracing along the paint like veins. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered, grabbing towels that did nothing. My first instinct wasn't the insurance company. It wasn't even Eric. My fingers went straight for Christian's number. Hey, it's me, I said when he picked up, breathless. Sorry, I know it's late. There's a leak. In the laundry room, I think. He didn't hesitate. Text me the address again. I'm not far. Turn off the main valve if you can find it, okay? His voice was firm, calm, the way no one ever was when I panicked. 15 minutes later, he burst through the door, toolbox in one hand, hair damp from the rain outside. Show me, he said, and I led him to the growing disaster. Water had already soaked part of the ceiling and dripped onto the washing machine like some cruel callback. While he worked under the sink, tightening something I couldn't name, a stray spray of water shot directly at him, soaking his shirt in a sharp, cold arc. He jerked back, laughed, then swore softly. The thin fabric clung to his chest and shoulders, outlining muscle in a way that made my throat go dry. Damn, he said, wiping his face. Sorry, your floor's a mess and now so am I. I can get you a towel and some clothes if you want, until that dries. My voice came out rougher than I intended. He glanced up, eyes searching mine for half a second, before he nodded. Yeah, he said quietly. That'd be great. Upstairs, I pulled an old t-shirt and sweatpants from my drawer, things Eric never wore anymore, because they were too baggy, too soft. My hands shook more than they should have. When I came back down, Christian accepted the bundle with a grateful smile. Where can I change? The question hung between us, heavier than it should have been. I nodded toward the guest room down the hall. The door cracked open like an invitation I almost wished wasn't necessary. Christian disappeared inside, and I stood at the threshold of the laundry room, the smell of damp fabric and rain heavy in the air. It was strange, having someone here, not just fixing broken pipes or machine parts, but filling the spaces where silence had ruled for too long. When he came out again, dry and in my clothes, he looked different, as if borrowing a piece of my world changed something about him. The oversized t-shirt hung loose, brushing his thighs. The sweatpants were baggy, but soft on him. He smiled, a little sheepish, but unguarded. Thanks, he said, settling back by the tea I'd made in a hurried, fumbling way. The night stretched quiet, the kind of silence that feels full, not empty. We talked about everything and nothing. Christian's past hardships, growing up in a rough neighborhood, his determination to fix things rather than give up. I shared stories of my art, my dead-end relationship, the hollow spaces between promises and loneliness. At one point, his gaze softened, and he said, "You deserve better than someone who doesn't see you." It wasn't judgment, just recognition. The words lingered in the warm kitchen light long after he left. That kiss, the one I still felt on my lips, was never meant to happen, and yet it had. A brief, hesitant brush, charged with everything we couldn't say aloud. I pulled away first, guilt and confusion knotting tight inside me. I'm committed, or at least I'm supposed to be, but Christian's presence cracked the foundation of a life I was tired of pretending to live. Days passed in a painful silence. I avoided his number, my own thoughts twisting and turning. But then, Just when I thought the fragile connection would break, he came back. No tools, no work, just him. Christian didn't ask for an excuse to stay. He simply said, "I've been thinking about you. I'm willing to wait. No rush, no pressure. Just waiting." In that quiet laundry room, the place where broken things found repair, we made a promise not to rush, not to break, but to see if something real might grow from the small sparks between broken machines and broken hearts. Christian's eyes held a quiet determination that evening in the laundry room, a simple space now etched with meaning far beyond leaking pipes and broken machines. He didn't rush me, didn't push for answers or confessions. Instead, he stood there, patient, steady, a presence I hadn't known I needed. I told him about Eric, about how the distance wasn't just geographical but inside us, how I'd been holding on to a shadow of what we had once promised each other. Christian listened without judgment, his hand brushing lightly against mine for just a moment that stretched long, warm, fragile. "I'm not asking you to choose. Not now," he said softly. "But I want you to know I see you, for everything you are and could be. I'm willing to wait while you figure it out." That willingness was a gift I hadn't expected, a hope carved from honesty rather than desperation. The tension in my chest loosened, and I let myself imagine a future where companionship wasn't hollow, where love wasn't what if, where I could breathe without pretending. Our lips met then, not a surge of passion, but a careful, searching brush that spoke of promises and possibilities. It was a moment suspended between fear and yearning, a whisper against the backdrop of a world that seemed too loud for me to hear my own heart. We sat there long after the rain softened outside, sharing tea and stories as the night deepened. For once, the silence between us wasn't a void, but a space filled with understanding, with connection. In the weeks that followed, Eric and I drifted further apart, the truth too heavy to mask. I wasn't sure where that road would lead, but I knew I didn't want to walk it alone anymore. Christian became my unexpected light, a mechanic not just for broken appliances, but for the parts of me I thought were lost. And while the path ahead was uncertain and slow, it finally felt like moving forward. Sometimes the heart repairs itself, not by forgetting what's broken, but by finding the courage to try again, with someone willing to hold the pieces gently and wait, no matter how long it takes.